Right, and here we are again, having drawn in our temperate forests. I have gone all over the place to create some temperate forests. We've got another barrier down here, again further driving our players through this little bottleneck. I've got some islands full of forest. I've come down here, I finished off this line, put in something down here where I thought, well, maybe if we zoom in, we've got a coastline here, maybe there's going to be a town in there, and that's the road out. I've also dotted a few little trees here and there just to sort of indicate that it's lightly wooded. Left another space here to put something in. I'm fairly fond of clearings inside forests for cities and things. Put something down here. And of course there's our borderline, so you can cross it slightly, but I don't want to go too far down here because remember these islands are going to become individual kind of traps and things for the players. So now we move on to jungle. And for jungle, I'm going to give you a demonstration here. What I do for jungle is I draw an outline. So let's say that that is the shape of our jungle. And then I literally just kind of go mad with the mouse. Again, it's really just a representation. So I kind of think of jungles as these heavily interlocked kind of masses where one tree is fairly indistinguishable from the next because of the vines and the coverage and that kind of stuff. So I literally just go mad and fill it in fairly broad strokes. Also I'm zoomed in here to make sure that the lines are not too big, not too far apart, to give it that very dense kind of feeling. And I'm just going to go around so that you can see what happens. Fill it in. And it seems to be quite a quick process, but it actually takes some time. And that's how I would do a jungle. And of course, with the miracle of modern day technology and several hours of work, I have already created several jungles. I'm just going to finish this one off so you get a sense of how to do it. Still carved those pathways in amongst the jungles, although it's looking a little bit more overgrown than in the forest because, well, jungles grow back quite quickly. So the pathway would have to be well maintained all the time. Once the trees are in, there's only really a few other pieces of geography left for us to really kind of play with. I'm just going to finish this really quickly. And again, the geography that we are left with, apart from special features, which you can add in at your leisure and wherever and whenever you like, is, if you look at it, large inland lakes or seas, rivers, swamps or bogs or marshes, and that's really about it. The rest is either plains or Arctic tundra. I've got a few little symbols and things that I use for those. I'm going to show you those really quickly now as well. This map's getting kind of full already, so it's looking pretty good. The next video will be on coloring in the map, because the idea of going through 400 tutorials to learn how to do a map is frankly quite scary. We can do city placement, I suppose, as well, because the coloring is very, very simple to begin with. And hopefully the final tutorial, this is my plan anyway, would be on how to finish off the map so that it looks really, really professional. So I filled in some jungle there, done some jungle up here and sort of over there. I want this to be open because now I want to work on our next layer, which we will designate as, let's call it lakes. Oops. Lakes. So lakes are something that allow you to really control position. I'm going to do a lake here. Again, you just sort of zoom in to an appropriate size. I want to have a river kind of coming in from here somewhere, so I'm just going to draw a river, and then it's going to open up into a lake, which will kind of get stuck here because there's mountains all around it. And I kind of draw rivers like this funny little crossover thing. And then there's a lake. There are a couple ideas on how to define it as a lake, not a chasm. You kind of do these weird little waves to look like waves washing up on the shore. You can do that around the whole continent if you like. I have done this before around the whole continent, but it's not really necessary. But lakes it is to help sort of define, oh, that's a lake area, not a hole in the earth. So, whoops. If we look at water flow, this is where you do need geography to a degree. I'm going to have a river coming out here. And it's going to come out of the forest kind of down there, and it can arc around and come out there. Because if the players really want to know what the river does inside the forest, they can go and have a look for themselves. Rivers typically flow from mountains down to coastlands. Starts way up here, and let's just make it amble down, and that looks like a fun point to come out on. Let's make it a river delta, so we're going to have several branches opening out. I realize that this should have been a bulge rather than a crevasse, but well, I'm going to say that gnomes dug it out for its precious metals that the river was bringing down with it from wherever. Let's come up here. And of course remember that rivers do not just flow east and west, they also flow north and south. So let's bring in one here, and we're going to follow the curve. Come in there, and I'm going to open that out into a lake, just because it looks kind of nice. Quite a romantic little spot with this forest on the edge. Might be some good fishing in there. So lakes are we're going to turn this into Arctic tundra if you remember. I'm going to come down here. Oh yeah, let's put in have a lake starting here, a river starting here. And it's going to do something strange and something that geography says it shouldn't do. It's going to split one fork coming down here. One fork opening up into this rather large lake. Now this line here is causing issues because Photoshop wants to snap to it, so it creates some funny little squiggles. So I'm just going to move it and fill in our waves around the lake there. Do we need anything here? Sure, let's add in some more. Why not? So we'll go down here. Sound effects often help when making maps, by the way. Running water, rocks, that kind of thing. And then I want another one coming through here. This doesn't have to do anything fancy. In medieval times, and although we say medieval times, but in fantasy settings, dams really are not constructed very often. Usually it's natural lakes and things that are used for communities and things. If you have a more advanced society, perhaps they've built a dam. Perhaps they haven't. I'm going to do something very weird here, and you can scream and shout as much as you like. I am going to have a river, because it's fantasy, right? I'm going to have a river start there. Maybe this is weird, maybe I'll delete it. That's, for me, one of the great benefits of using a tool like this, is that you can just delete the layer and start again. So what I'm thinking here is that the players could discover that there's this bizarre trick of geography that has created a river that flows in almost a circle from one source to the other and doesn't mix with the seawater. It could be a form of transportation or something like that. Okay, so I'm happy with rivers and lakes. Let's move on to swamps quickly because we're running out of time here. Oh my word. Swamps are really fun in terms of controlling players, and I wanted to have a gigantic swamp here. Okay, so I'm really zoomed in, and for swamps what I do is like a V shape to represent like little fern leaves or bog fern, reeds, whatever the case might be. You can give it a bit of detail if you like. Sometimes I used to kind of make it look like little flowers, like a bulrush or something like that. That's entirely up to you how much time you want to spend on the project. And then I kind of create this swirly kind of effect to really make it feel like it's this horrid, liquidy, muddy, sludgy kind of place. And also, usually by now, having drawn 10,000 trees by hand, I'm kind of over it. So I look for kind of easier ways to do it. And this is my usual pattern, by the way. Kind of start with mountains, move into trees, move into rivers, and then kind of do swamps and things. So yeah, that's kind of a nasty looking swamp to me. Then I wanted another little one down here. And the placement of swamps really is just, you could argue that there should be one in here because this kind of looks like it'd be a very boggy, wet kind of area, which is fine too. Swamps give you all sorts of encounters and things and bring in the risk of players getting stuck in mud and drowning and being dragged down to the corpses that have existed for hundreds of years in the swamps. I generally don't have a huge amount of swamps, just because they're very depressing places, very challenging for players. I had a campaign once where the airship the characters were playing on crashed in a swamp, and they had to kind of try and survive. It was a very dark kind of scenario. I do want swamps here though, because I don't want them to just be able to skip across these islands without having to think a little bit about how they're going to get around. So that is basically lakes, jungle, swamps. I don't think I want any more swamps on the map. And again, it's always, you need to be able to just turn off your different layers, and you're going to see why when we start talking about coloring in. But from the original map, the original idea, I think we are making progress. I really think we're making progress.